Let me ask you something strange. Before we start today, why do some people study English for 10 years and still struggle to hold a basic conversation? 10 years, hundreds of hours. Grammar books, vocabulary lists, classes, tests. And yet, when someone asks them a simple question in English, they freeze. But then there are other people. People who improve dramatically in just 1 year. Sometimes less. They go from barely understanding anything to speaking naturally and confidently, to following conversations without effort, to expressing complex ideas in real time. What is the difference between these two kinds of learners? Is it intelligence? Some people are simply better with languages than others. Is it natural talent? Something you either have or you don't? Is it a secret method that only certain learners have discovered? Or is it something much simpler? Something that every single learner, including you, has complete access to right now? By the end of this episode, you will understand the real answer to that question. And once you understand it, the way you think about learning English might change forever. Hello, my amazing students, and welcome back to English with Camila, the podcast where you improve your English naturally just by listening to real conversations and ideas. I'm so glad you are here today because this topic is one of the most important I have ever covered. The answer to this question is the key that unlocks everything else in language learning. If you enjoy learning English this way, through natural listening, through real spoken conversation, please subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss the next episode. I release new listening practice regularly, all designed to help you build genuine confidence and fluency in English. Subscribing is completely free, and it means every new episode finds you automatically. Please do it now if you haven't already. All right, let's go back to our question. Let's take it seriously, because I think most learners have never actually stopped to think carefully about it. Why do some learners improve quickly while others feel stuck for years? The most common answer I hear from students is this: the fast improvers must be studying more. More grammar, more vocabulary, more hours at a desk with books and exercises and tests. And I understand why people believe this. It feels logical. More input should produce more output. More studying should produce more skill. But when you actually look at the learners who improve the fastest, when you examine what they are doing differently, the answer is not more studying. The answer is something different. Something that sounds almost too simple when you first hear it. The answer is exposure. Exposure means how much English your brain actually encounters in daily life. How much English it hears, reads, processes, and absorbs on a regular basis. Not once a week in a classroom. Not during a scheduled study session on Saturday afternoon. But regularly, consistently, naturally, as a normal part of each day. And to understand why exposure is so powerful, I want to start by thinking about the most successful language learners in human history. Children. Children learning their first language are the most remarkable language learners on the planet. They go from knowing 0 words to speaking fluently in about 3 to 4 years, without explicit instruction. without grammar rules, without vocabulary tests. How? The answer is almost embarrassingly simple. They hear the language constantly. From the moment they are born, they are immersed in their native language. They hear their parents speaking. They hear conversations around them. They hear stories and questions and reactions and jokes, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. The language is not something they sit down to study at a particular time of day. The language is the water they swim in. It surrounds them completely and continuously. And their brain, which is an extraordinary pattern recognition machine, begins to process all of that exposure. It starts noticing patterns. This sound combination appears together often. This word always seems to appear in these kinds of situations. When people say this, they usually mean that. Patterns become recognized. Recognized patterns become understood. Understood patterns eventually become produced. And fluency emerges. Not because anyone taught it directly, but because the brain had enough exposure to figure it out. Now here is the important part for you as an adult English learner. Your brain still works the same way. It is still a pattern recognition machine. It still learns language through exposure and repetition and context. The process is not as fast or as effortless as it was in early childhood. That is simply biological reality. The brain changes as we age, and language acquisition becomes more effortful. But the fundamental mechanism is the same. Your brain learns English the same way it learned your native language, through repeated contact with real language in real contexts over time. Which means that how much English your brain encounters every day matters enormously. Far more than what kind of exercises you do during a formal study session. Let me show you this with a comparison, because I think it makes the point more clearly than any explanation. Imagine two learners. They are at the same level when they start. Same vocabulary, same grammar knowledge, same speaking ability. Student 1 has a traditional study routine. Every Saturday, they sit down for 3 hours. They open their grammar workbook. They study rules. They do exercises. They memorize vocabulary from a list. It is disciplined. It is organized. It looks like serious studying. But from Sunday to Friday, there is almost no English in their life. No English audio, no English content, no English conversations. The language simply disappears from their experience for 6 days out of every 7. Now, student 2 has a very different relationship with English. They do not have long formal study sessions. Maybe 15 or 20 minutes of focused practice each day. Nothing dramatic. But English is present in their life constantly. They listen to an English podcast on their commute. They watch a short English video during lunch. They follow some English accounts on social media. They read a few paragraphs of something in English before bed. English is woven through their ordinary daily life. It does not feel like studying. It mostly feels like just living their life with English present. After 6 months, which student has improved more? Almost certainly student 2. And not by a small amount, by a significant margin. Because language grows through familiarity. through repeated contact, through the brain encountering patterns again and again until they become automatic. Student 1's brain has 3 good hours of English contact per week. Student 2's brain has small amounts of English contact every single day. The cumulative exposure is dramatically different. And it is cumulative exposure, not the intensity of any individual session, that drives language acquisition. Now I want to try a small experiment with you right now. Something that will demonstrate this principle directly. Listen carefully to this sentence. I was going to call you yesterday, but something came up. Simple enough. Now listen again. I was going to call you yesterday, but something came up. Already, even in that second hearing, there is a slight increase in familiarity. The sentence settles just a little more naturally. One more time. I was going to call you yesterday, but something came up. That is 3 exposures to one pattern in 30 seconds. And you can already feel a slight difference in how natural it seems. Native speakers have heard patterns like this thousands and thousands of times over the course of their lives. That is why they feel completely effortless. That is why they appear automatically, without any conscious thought. That is what fluency actually is at its core. Fluency is not knowing the most sophisticated vocabulary. Fluency is not having memorized the most grammar rules. Fluency is having encountered patterns so many times that they have become automatic, that they live below the level of conscious thought and just appear when you need them. And the way you build that automaticity is through exposure. Repeated, consistent, regular, daily. Let me give you another example of this, because I think it is worth really understanding deeply. Think about these very short phrases. Incredibly common, used constantly by native speakers in almost every conversation. I think so. I'm not sure. That makes sense. I agree. Let me think about that. That's a good point. I see what you mean. Exactly. These phrases are simple. You probably recognize all of them. You might even be able to translate them into your native language easily. But can you produce them instantly? In the middle of a real conversation, under time pressure, without thinking? For many learners, the honest answer is not yet. Because recognition and production are different skills, and production requires a higher level of automaticity. But here is what happens when you encounter these phrases regularly through listening. When you hear them in podcasts and videos and conversations over and over, your brain stops treating them as individual words that need to be assembled. It begins storing them as single units, ready-made language chunks that can be retrieved and used instantly. I think so becomes one thing your brain retrieves, not 4 separate words your brain assembles. That makes sense becomes one ready unit, not 3 words you construct in real time. And when language becomes available in chunks like that, speaking becomes dramatically faster, dramatically more natural, dramatically less effortful. That is the gift of exposure. That is what regular contact with English builds for you over time. Subscribe to English with Camila right now if this is making sense to you. Every week I give you exactly this: natural English exposure combined with ideas that help you understand your own learning more clearly. It is free, and I would love for you to keep learning with me. Subscribe now so you never miss an episode. Now I want to address something that holds many learners back, something that connects directly to what we have been talking about: the waiting problem. Many students have a mental model of language learning that looks like this. First, you study enough, then you feel ready, then you start speaking. Study, readiness, speaking, in that order. And so they wait. They tell themselves, I will start speaking English when my vocabulary is better, when my grammar is stronger, when I feel more confident, when I am finally ready. But the waiting never ends, because readiness does not arrive through studying alone. Readiness arrives through doing the thing. Imagine you want to learn to swim. Would you spend 2 years reading books about swimming techniques before you ever entered the water? Of course not, because you cannot learn to swim by reading about swimming. At some point, you have to get into the water. At first, it feels uncomfortable, uncertain, maybe a little frightening. Your movements are uncoordinated. You swallow some water. You feel nothing like a swimmer. But your body is learning. Every moment in the water teaches it something that no book ever could. The feeling of buoyancy, how to balance, how to move your arms and legs in coordination, how to breathe. And slowly, with time and repetition in the water, it begins to come together. Speaking English works in exactly the same way. The first time you try to have a real conversation in English, it will feel slow, uncomfortable. You will pause in the middle of sentences, searching for words. You will make grammatical errors. You will occasionally choose the wrong expression. All of that is completely normal. All of that is expected. All of that is part of the process. Because here is what most learners do not realize about mistakes. Mistakes are not obstacles to progress. Mistakes are how progress happens. Every mistake is your brain encountering the gap between what it knows and what it needs to know. And that encounter, that moment of reaching and falling slightly short, is exactly what triggers learning. Think about how you learned to walk as a very young child. You fell, constantly, many times every day. Each fall was your body learning something specific about balance and movement that it could not have learned any other way. The falling was not the failure of learning to walk. The falling was the mechanism of learning to walk. Mistakes in speaking English are the same. They are not signs that you are bad at this. They are the mechanism through which your brain develops the skill. And once you genuinely understand that, once you stop experiencing mistakes as embarrassments and start experiencing them as information, your whole relationship with speaking changes. You become willing to attempt more, to try sentences you are not sure about, to enter conversations before you feel completely ready. And because you attempt more, you learn more. And because you learn more, you improve faster. Now let's talk about something very practical, because I want to give you a specific, simple challenge that you can act on today. After this episode ends, I want you to speak English for 1 minute. Just 1 minute, 60 seconds. You can talk about your day, what you did this morning, what you ate, where you went, what you are thinking about. Or you can describe something you see around you right now. The room you are in. What the weather is like. What sounds you can hear. Or you can talk about something you watched recently. A show. A video. A film. Just a few sentences about what it was and whether you enjoyed it. The topic does not matter at all. The quality does not matter at all. What matters is that you actually speak. Out loud. With your real voice. Because that 1 minute, that single minute of real production, is worth more for your speaking development than an hour of passive reading about grammar. And if you do it every day, just that 1 minute, something begins to happen that feels almost surprising when you first notice it. Words start coming a little faster. Sentences feel a little less effortful. The pauses between thoughts get slightly shorter. It is not dramatic. It does not happen overnight. But it is real, and it is consistent, and it compounds. After 1 week, you have 7 minutes of speaking practice. After 1 month, you have 30. After 1 year, you have over 360 minutes of real speaking experience. 6 hours of actual speaking practice. From 1 minute a day. That is the mathematics of consistency. That is why small daily habits are so much more powerful than occasional large efforts. Let me also give you some specific ideas for how to increase your English exposure outside of dedicated practice time. Because this is where the real cumulative gains happen. The first idea is audio exposure during movement. Anytime you are walking somewhere, commuting, exercising, doing household tasks, put English audio in your ears. Podcasts, conversations, interviews, anything spoken naturally by real people. You do not have to be intensely focused. You do not have to understand every single word. The exposure itself, even when it is semi-attentive, is feeding your brain patterns. The second idea is replacing some of your native language entertainment with English content. Not all of it. Not in a way that feels like punishment. Just some of it. A show you watch in English instead of in translation. A YouTube channel about a topic you love but in English. A podcast about something you are genuinely interested in. When the content interests you, your brain pays deeper attention. And deeper attention means faster pattern acquisition. The third idea is what I think of as environmental English. Small touches of English scattered through your physical environment. Setting your phone language to English. Having a few English words or phrases written somewhere you see every day. Labeling objects around your home with their English names when you are first learning vocabulary. These small environmental cues keep English present in your awareness, even when you are not actively studying. And every small moment of contact is a tiny reinforcement of the patterns your brain is creating. The fourth idea is reading in English. Small amounts, consistently. Not textbooks, not formal grammar exercises, but things you would actually enjoy reading. Short articles, Stories. Anything that holds your genuine attention. Even 5 minutes of reading in English each day adds meaningful exposure to your week. And reading is particularly valuable because it reinforces spelling, vocabulary in context, and sentence structure in a way that audio alone does not. The combination of listening and reading, both forms of input, both sources of pattern exposure, accelerates acquisition faster than either one alone. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with something I truly believe, something I have seen demonstrated again and again in learners at every level. Progress in language learning is often invisible while it is happening. You practice every day. You listen every day. You try to speak every day. And it can feel, for long stretches, like nothing is really changing. But something is always changing, under the surface, in the neural architecture of your brain. Patterns are being reinforced. Connections are being strengthened. The language is slowly becoming more automatic. And then one day, something shifts. You understand a conversation that would have been incomprehensible 6 months ago. You produce a sentence without thinking about it. You follow a fast exchange and realize you caught every word. Those moments feel sudden, but they are not. They are the visible surface of hundreds of hours of invisible progress. They are the result of all those small, daily exposures. All those minutes of listening. All those 1-minute speaking practices. All that consistent, patient effort. Every time you listen to English, your brain is learning. Even when you are not sure you understood everything. Every time you repeat a sentence out loud, your brain is storing a pattern more deeply. Every time you attempt a conversation in English, your brain is building the neural pathways that will eventually make conversation feel effortless. None of it is wasted. All of it is building towards something real. Please subscribe to English with Camila if you have not already. Every week, I am here with new listening practice and new ideas to support your English journey. Your consistency with this podcast is itself a form of exposure, and every episode is another step forward. Leave me a comment after this episode if you can. Tell me, what is one way you are going to add more English exposure to your daily life this week? I read every comment and I genuinely love hearing from you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Keep practicing every day. Keep listening even when it feels slow. Keep believing in your progress, because it is real. It is happening. Even on the days when you cannot see it yet. I will see you in the next episode of English with Camila.